Hey guys. Good to have you here. So, listen, we've got a good show tonight. It is 6:59 p.m. Oh, shit. I forgot to start recording. Damn it. Now I got to splice that together tonight. It's going to be like an extra 35 minutes worth of work now. Damn it. Anyway, welcome to the show. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. I wish you all a lot of luck. And we have a great guest returning. His name is Bob Motta. Bob Motta of the Defense Diaries. Criminal defense lawyer and of course, a legal analyst who is at the helm of a really great podcast that is really killing it, doing a good job. It's a hot genre, true crime, and of course, you know, court reporting and all that stuff. It's very, very hot, and it's going to stay that way because now there is a very vibrant, personable, affable, marketplace of hosts and personalities that are in that that's really working within that passion, within that genre, and doing well. And Bob is one of them. He's going to be on with us tonight to talk about a few things. I want to get an update about the Delphi murders, no doubt about it, because that was an absolute mess. The last time that we left off, it was rife with craziness, with things that really made you scratch your head, including the occult, including occult ritual murder. The cloud of that hanging over everything. So we'll be speaking with him about that. I want to talk to him about some of some other creepy stuff that he has covered over the years, maybe on his plate right now. I have some other things that have been suggested by the audience, so we'll get all of that and we'll bring it in. I also want to ask him about the TikTok ban, or this legislative action that was slipped into another theft bill. Another open air theft that happened yesterday or the day before. I want to talk about that. I want to see what he thinks about it. Because, of course, there's a lot of First Amendment implications. Of course, the feds are going to say that it is a national security implication. So that's where they go with it, and you just got to expect it at this point. But it'll be interesting to see what Bob has to say. And the best thing is that he is going to be calling in from a line, not in a car, with some stable video as well. So it's going to be very, very enjoyable. So I'm happy to have him back on, and I hope it's the first of a few times this year, and away we go. Thank you so much to Blue Monster Prep and all of our wonderful, wonderful friends on the affiliates page on quitefrankly.tv. Get to Blue Monster Prep because you need some stuff. Do something for yourself. It is insurance you can eat. They don't have anything that has to do with dolphins, though. What am I talking about? No dolphin repellent. Daily Star. There's a dead dolphin with bullets in the brain and heart. Found washed up as cops offer a reward. First thing I thought, save this story for Friday and make a joke with Matt about how it was Sylvester Stallone trying to get rid of a witness. I still might do it, by the way. Dead dolphin with bullets in his brain. Terrible. Just awful. You don't want this to happen to anything, especially a dolphin. Hefty cash reward has been offered in exchange for information regarding the sick person who left the dolphin dead with multiple bullets lodged in the poor creature's brain. Dolphin was found cruelly shot to death on a Louisiana beach last month with multiple bullets lodged in the animal's brain. The juvenile bottlenose dolphin was found after the corpse washed up on West Mays Beach in Cameron Parish, Louisiana, on March 14th. Now the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is offering a £16,000 reward on information who was behind the grim act. I guess this is they're translating this for UK audiences. Don't have me do the exchange rate on that. It's probably what, half? Like $8,000, something around there? I forget. Let's see. Audubon Aquarium Rescue, NOAA's standing network partner, brought the dolphin to the Nature Institute in New Orleans. A necropsy revealed multiple bullets lodged in the dolphin's brain, spinal cord, and heart. Awful. Awful to hear. Really. And whoever does it, I hope they pay. Just like elephant poachers. Whenever I hear about people poaching elephants, taking their tusks and all that, I hope that those people get ripped limb from limb. I really do. Limb from limb. Let's see. Okay, so obviously we were talking a little bit last night about what's going on with all the protests and, you know, the sides, the lines drawn in the sand, and what side are you on, if any. Well, obviously there is a lot of questions that have to be answered. What's going on with the rest of the school year? Some schools have already said we're going completely remote for the rest of it because we don't feel safe. We want all of our students to feel safe, and Jewish students are being threatened. This and that, the other thing. And then, of course, others are just like, oh man, are we just a hair trigger away from another Kent state? Which is totally possible. Because, you know, there's a lot of just ill will that is spreading among the, if you want to call them, student population. It's just all activist nonsense. But if you want to get a glimpse into we were talking about this last night, and I have more on this later on because it goes into a little bit of a graphic that is so telling and really just highlights the obvious that was shared by Elon Musk earlier on today about search terms and consciousness rising on things like race and everything else. If you want to see what they have done to just really rudderless children, here is a protester, a girl with a nose ring, so you know she's real, went out there to protest, has no clue why she's protesting. This clip was shared by a lot of people, but I got it from Colin Rugg. Listen to this here. Here she is, and it tells you everything you need to know.
And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing?
About what?
About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free!
I wish I was more educated.
I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support. So I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
And what...
We came down. It's like the reinforcements. We're up at Columbia. We came down. We heard NYU students needed support. Why are you here? I don't know. Asks her girlfriend. I guess I could be better educated. It's just so fucking pointless. And there's more to be said on this from different angles. As far as feeling no hope, not knowing where to put your energy behind, really having your options in life limited based on your limited myopic view of the world. You know, there's only one way that these kids have been encouraged to see the world, to see the world's challenges, to consider possible solutions to challenges. There's only one direction they're allowed to look in. Only one direction that they're allowed to look for ideas. And if they look in any other direction, they're called Hitler. So it must be frustrating. And of course, when something like this pops up, a crowd starts forming. They all start running. You see all the drama kids. All the drama kids are out there doing their interpretive jazz dancing. It's the only job they're ever going to have in their life. Going out with their drama majors. That, and of course they can go and join the Extinction Rebellion and put on those goofy red dresses and walk silently throughout the streets of London like an idiot. That's what you get. No doubt about it. But just poor chick. What a poor girl. You can tell she's, nice. Just there's no direction. It's aimless. So you hope that they get some sort of they walk through the gate and they see what the hell's going on. On the other hand, we have this, which I thought was pretty interesting. We have Creed. Creed. For the first time in 12 years, they play higher on the 1999 cruise tour. I have my friend Brian Storm out there. He's the guy behind Rock Feed. Anybody out there who's likes hard rock, heavy metal, you probably know Rock Feed. And there's a music news, and he gets all this great access now. We went to the Metallica show with him. Really good guy. I want him to come and hang out here on a Saturday night. Anyway, he's on the cruise there, covering the Creed reunion. Got to listen to this just for a second. It's the higher for the first time in 12 years. Hold on. It's just really... Come on. There you go. So Mark Tremonti looks great. And Scott Stapp looks pretty good too. So they're back. And that'll give us a little something to... I don't know, some cheap nostalgia right there. It's so funny because the world is so bad right now. These things are cyclical as it is, especially bands like Creed or Nickelback. They come out, they hit the scene, rave reviews, they make a ton of money, they release a couple of solid albums, and there is just tons of their singles all over the place, played ad nauseum. Everybody starts hating them. They are just then they start getting into ego trip problems. The band breaks up, there's scandal, whatever the hell else, and then they just slip into obscurity. They become the butt of many jokes. You give it 15, 20 years, all of a sudden, they are back with a vengeance, and people just kind of let their hair down and say, okay, let's have some fun. They say, oh, never me, no. Okay, fine. I'm not talking about you then. But I think it's hilarious and kind of heartwarming how the world, especially right now, is so bad. It's making us reverse course on many of the things that we used to rag on out of just pure convenience of living in a better world, okay? Because I don't have the time. I don't have the time to be so recreational with my hate for bands. Like Creed, I like that first, like Human Clay album. We were all in the 8th grade, 9th grade, something like that. So it came out, and we were part of the whole thing. I never saw them live, but I had friends that really, really loved them. And because they loved them, I started hating them. Like my friend Vinny, he went out and he bought himself a pair of leather pants. Oh, we were on, and he never showed any of us. We only heard about it because our other friend who went to a Creed concert with him narked on Vinny. And we were like, we've got to find these pants. We've got to find them. And then we never found them. He never wore them in public or anything like that. We knew that they existed, though. And then we got news that he threw it out. He threw them out or something, slipped them into the trash. So, things like that. It makes you think about the days where you had the convenience of sitting back and just recreationally hating on something like Creed. And it makes it all not so bad anymore. Good for them. Go on a reunion tour. It makes me feel a little bit better about things knowing that Creed is out there playing higher for the first time in 15 years. Good for them. Oh, and one last thing before we go. I can't wait to read this, but Raw Egg Nationalists Man's World magazine just came in this afternoon. I just opened it up in the box over here. This thing is amazing. Holding it is amazing. The paper, it is such high quality. The print is amazing. The way that the inside has been put together. All of the, I can't wait to read the articles. It's even capped off with an interview that Noor bin Laden did, because Ren and Noor are good friends. Noor bin Laden in conversation with Owen Schroyer. That's in the back. I can't wait to read this stuff. I really don't. I really can't. Wonderful memes just spackled into the middle of it. You can tell it's just very well selected stuff. I can't wait to read it. And just holding it in my hand, such care was put into this. And I just want to congratulate Ren, Raw Egg Nationalist. I just want to congratulate him. That's Man's World magazine. Go check him out on Twitter and find a way to subscribe to it. It is so worth the money holding this high quality publication. I love it. I can't wait to read it. I'm going to read it with a little bit of coffee and a morning cigar at some point in May. I'll wait for a beautiful Friday morning in May, and I'll go in there and I'll just read through it, and I'll pick out a topic in this magazine for a Friday night conversation. That's what we will do. I don't know what I'm going to find yet, but I'm sure something's in there. So congratulations, Ren. Keep it up. We need more physical legacies like this left behind. The blogging is great, but that's why I said I wanted to start a quite frankly, periodical. Some kind of a newspaper. One a year, twice a year. Once you get rolling, maybe a quarterly or something like that. Physical, just feels good. There's something about it. It's good for the soul. I just want to keep touching it.
Jeez, it makes me feel
Okay, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Does he look like a bitch?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
How y'all feeling? So, just to let you all know, to remind you that you can contribute to this show in a number of ways. Obviously, calling in later on in the show would be wonderful. But if you wanted to pose some questions to Bob Motta, I will keep my eyes open on, quite frankly, superchat.com. The Rumble rants and the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv to in case you send anything that you wanted to ask Bob, and I'll try to get those in short order while he's still on with me. Other than that, always read through all the super chats after the show, after the intermission. That's where I like doing that. So send them on in. The universal super chat though, quitefranklysuperchat.com. Anybody can send to that at any time of day. Any time of week, it doesn't matter. It'll be waiting for me here. That's all I have. All right, so here's what I wanted to set the table with as Bob is already ready to go. Let's see here. Hold on. There you go. Great. Senate bill. Take a look. The Senate bill passes a TikTok ban. They're trying to force the parent company of TikTok to sell or face a ban, they're saying. And they sent it to Biden. Of course, the Biden administration said that they are not leaving TikTok for the duration of the 2024 election because they need all the help they can get to try to appeal to all of the red diaper doper babies on there. But the Senate passed legislation on Tuesday that would force TikTok's China-based parent company to sell the social media platform under the threat of a ban. A contentious move by U.S. lawmakers that is expected to face legal challenges and disrupt the lives of content creators who rely on the short-form video app for income. TikTok legislation was included as part of a $95 billion theft package that provides foreign aid, all illegal, every red cent, to Ukraine and Israel, and was passed 79 to 18. 79 to 18. There's not enough rope, ladies and gentlemen. It now goes to President Joe Biden, who said in a statement immediately after passage that he will sign it on Wednesday. So let's see here. The legislation extends the deadline by giving ByteDance 9 months to sell TikTok and possibly 3-month extension if a sale is in progress. The bill would also bar the company from controlling TikTok's secret sauce, the algorithm that feeds users videos based on their interest and has made the platform a trend-setting phenomenon. I'll tell you, been trying to get a foothold over there. Everything I upload, no matter how innocent it is, like every third video gets taken down. It's really been like that. I'm like, what the hell is everybody doing? I'm seeing like videos past me, no less than 200,000 likes. That means it has millions of views. And it's like the deepest of conspiracy lore. I make a couple of jokes about Joe Biden and the cannibal story, and no, this goes against terms of service. What the fuck am I doing wrong? Anyway, whatever. It's just, I'm trying to do all the stuff on my own is the issue. Maybe I don't get the nuance of it all, but I'm just trying. Makes no sense to me, but I'm wondering why. Of course, they say national security issues. It's China, this and that. And as I said before, who is going to reap the whirlwind from this? This is an app, a platform that is very, very near and dear to the young. That is where most kids under the age of 30 now are getting their news, their information, a lot of their short-form entertainment. But it's also a major economic driver for a lot of adults who are out there and plying their trade and having a lot of success with it. So who is going to reap the whirlwind? Who is going to catch the blame? Is it going to be the Republicans, the Democrats? What is it? It's because it's a bipartisan swindle. Anyway, that all being said, Bob Motta is a criminal defense attorney whose passion for legal analysis has become the foundation for what is now known as the Defense Diaries, a true crime podcast, and it's very impressive corresponding archive on their website. You got to go check it out. The link is in the description. Welcome back to the show, Bob. It's been a while.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I think this time our sound and video should be substantially better than it was last time.
Oh, we look stellar right now.
Yeah, last time I was actually in the car driving back, I think from Omaha. But yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. Happy to hang again.
Well, you look great. You sound great. I'm glad that we have some time tonight, and because I really want to cover the gamut. And before we get into all of the cases that you are covering, especially getting a little bit of an update on Delphi, which we did together last time you were on, I want to ask you about this. I know you revere the Constitution. You use social media to expand the reach of your work, like so many other people out there doing, plying their craft and their trade right now. What do you think about the government's aggressive position on TikTok? What they state what their stated intent of what they're doing, and I don't know. Obviously, everything they say they're doing, I never believe. So, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, my first instinct is obviously as a heavy-duty Constitution guy. I think it's a violation of our First Amendment rights. I think it's exactly what the document was put in place for, to limit the government in terms of abridging our rights. And TikTok is certainly that. They're coming under the guise of, national security, and that China's using it to spy on us. And, ultimately, I think it'll get litigated. And I think ultimately, because essentially the mandate now is sell it by X date, or we're banning it here in the U.S. And in terms of us being able to stop it, it's going to have to go through the court system, and do I think that will be successful? Potentially. Like anything in the court system, it really depends on the judge that you pull. And what that judge's background is in terms of who are they appointed by, where do they lean politically, and, are they a TikTok user or fan?
It's one of those things, because if it does, that's the other thing here too, especially following a lot of this. I'm going to be doing a big show on Tuesday the 30th on going back into some deep dives on net neutrality again, and then how all of that timeline has really led us right up to Missouri versus Biden. And it's huge when you start really looking into the coordination of all this from a corporate sense, and this unspoken partnership between the corporate world, especially Silicon Valley, and the intelligence agencies, the government. And so this is one of those things where it's just like, okay, you're doing this because you're afraid China might spy on us. I mean, so what? So you can be more, you can have a personal stake in the spying. Like you're doing this to keep us safe on TikTok, or you just want the keys to the back door. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's it. They want to pivot now. Instead of China spying on us, they want to spy on us more than they already do. I mean, like, how much are we on the grid already? It's like anytime you go through. I just got back from Mexico, obviously having to go through immigration. They're like 1 second away from facial recognition. Like, that's where it's going to be implemented, where you're not even having to basically wait in line anymore. It's walk in and you're facially recognized. I'm not a huge fan of the government being in my business, just as a general proposition. So obviously, all of that makes me exceptionally nervous. On top of that, and I don't even want to get into the AI conversation with you right now, because we could probably spend 10 hours talking about that. But I've got long thoughts on that technology and how quickly it's coming, and the ramifications of when it finally lands in the capacity that I think that it's going to get to quicker than a lot of people are letting on. I think it's going to get sentient way faster than a lot of people are willing to admit. And the fact of the matter is, when you have a technology that's theoretically that powerful, you know how many people are racing, not just for the money side of it, which is astronomical, but for the power side of it. So there is just a massive race to get to the point where they're the leader in that technology, and it's all intertwined to me. All of it is. It's like I remember when, I'm sure you've seen The Social Dilemma. Like, when that dropped and my wife watched it, she got off all socials immediately, because it was a terrifying prospect that they're able to kind of monitor us, in a way that they're listening constantly. And it's like we've all had the experience when you're on Facebook and you mention something to somebody you're sitting next to in real life, and then all of a sudden on your feed pops up an ad for that exact thing that you were just talking about. Yeah. Like, the prospects of that are terrifying. But you and I, we're creators. We rely on social media like massively to market our product and our content and our brand. So for me, it's a double-edged sword. It's like it's obviously a necessary evil for me in terms of like building my brand, but I also dread it in a lot of different ways. So
I'm not, unless we are just we're just using terminology differently here. I don't see sentience being an issue, although I do see how, when prompted in the right way, the so-called artificial intelligence is going to be in everything all at once, and it's going to create a grid that is inescapable. I mean, the IRS is talking about it right now. How if you've ever had your so-called tax refund direct deposited in your account, they have already AI is monitoring everything that you're doing. And they claim that they've already recovered over $500 billion worth of recovered, which just means stolen $500 billion of other people's labor. So that's a scary ass thing. And yeah, you're right. We can talk about this for 10 hours. I just saw the CAA, the talent agency out there. Yeah. There is a whole thing that was written up by BuzzBite or something like that, how the future, they called it the future of fame, because what they're doing, right, you saw what, Kiss, the rock band, just did not too long ago. They announced that they cut a deal to sell their image and likeness to companies that can then, in the future, put Kiss back on tour as like a hologram, show. So now they're talking about the future of fame, where when Tom Hanks dies or something like that, they can use him for Toy Story 28 in the year 3000, and that'll just be, it'll just, dude, this is very, it's going to get creepy on top of everything else.
Man, I mean, for me, it's already there. And to me, sentient, like, you know, and I've been reading on it for years, man. And the concept of it essentially being able to think on its own, I think is not as far-fetched as you think it might be. You know, like we all know about the open letter that came out where all the, you know, the tech giants signed off on it, except for one guy. And, you know, that guy then wrote his own open letter. And like, I sat there and I read it, and it was horrific. It was terrifying. He's like putting a brick on it, you know, the 6-month thing to try to figure out legislation in terms of, you know, how do we slow it down? You know, because even when we think back to the internet, like I was just getting out of law school when the internet was starting to like gain prominence. And it was such an untapped resource, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it. We didn't really know how we were going to monetize it at first. And so it was the Wild West. And we're in the same situation with AI. The problem is that AI is infinitely more powerful than that. And the ability for, whether it's prompts in the beginning and whether that turns into something more nefarious where the computers are able to make their own prompts, you know, and become just super intelligent beyond anything that we can even understand. You know, I mean, you have to look at it, everything that we've accrued as human beings in terms of intelligence over our lifetimes on this planet will be accessed and understood and, you know, collated within the computers themselves instantaneously.
Well, wait. I have to inject on this then, because before we get into all of our actual casework tonight, let me ask you about the future of your you know, it's investigating a crime, litigating a crime. And then of course we get into, because we talk about artificial intelligence and the way they're actually able to grid and analyze behaviors in the way that they can actually project future behavior, then we're talking about pre-crime again. And so what do you think AI is going to be doing for being able to solve the murders of tomorrow? Because we saw what DNA did, be able to present DNA in a courtroom, what that did for so many cases, even just going back and exonerating people who have been wrongfully imprisoned. But where do you see this all going? The good, bad, the ugly?
I think that the first issues are going to be photographic and video evidence are going to become almost impossible to be able to differentiate between deep fakes and actual photographs and or voice recordings and or video, man. I just think it's going to be a huge issue to the extent where we're not going to know what we can trust anymore. You know, it's like I was watching a congressional hearing about 4 months ago, and it was a lawyer. I think he wasn't a criminal defense guy, but he was, I can't remember if he was a patent lawyer or a contractual guy, or, you know, but he wasn't a litigator. He wasn't a criminal defense guy. And he was talking about the scam that had gone on with him, where one morning he was driving to work. He gets a phone call. It's his son's number. He answers the phone. His son's like, "Dad, you know, I've just been involved in an accident, and I rear-ended somebody. The cop came over and told me, look, you know, you rear-ended a pregnant woman, and we're going to have to take you in. We're going to arrest you for DUI. He's like, I haven't even been drinking, but, you know, they took me in. I'm in custody now. And so he goes on telling this story, and, you know, that his kids telling him, like, they appointed him an attorney. And I'm like, in my head, you know, I know how the process works. I'm like, there's none of that's happening at that point. You know, he's like, this lawyer is going to call you, and you got to send him the retainer, and he's going to give you the clerk's office. So they had this whole thing where they had gone on to this kid's socials. They had pulled his voice off of it. They had deep faked his voice so that they had this entire conversation with the dad, and he could not differentiate between his own son. He ends up paying the money, and like, he was testifying to Congress, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg, man. Like, but when they're able to create deep fake photography and or video or confessions, just the limits are endless in terms of the nefarious things that can go on with it, where it's going to be near impossible for us to be able to figure out what's real and what's not in a court of law. Like, and that's like just the tip of it, man. Like when you get into the whole concept of our computers going to basically take the place of human attorneys. I mean, because it's not going to be long before a computer can go through all the case law, all the precedent out there, and be able to put cogent, powerful arguments together as to any issue. You know what I'm saying? It's like all of those things, and it's the same thing when you talk about the creator world, like script writing, songwriting, like everything, novels, everything that we do, everything that we know as humanity is soon going to be supplanted easily by computers, you know, and with little or no effort, you know. I mean, like podcasts, which is my primary game, like they're already pumping out, you know, like AI podcast where the AI is the host, the AI has written it, you know, and it's like you just plug in the information and it pumps it out. You know, you're not going to, as a human, you can't compete with it. It takes me 10 hours to draft my script for an episode.
I know.
And it's like,
yeah, dude. I mean, and you went right to the dark side with this question, because obviously there is that. I think that's the first thing people will start thinking about. Is not only how you can commit crimes with it. I've had a couple of those AI generated, you know, phone calls at 4 o'clock in the morning telling me that my mother had been kidnapped, you know, and in the thick of it, what they really get you on is adrenaline, because it's a quick pitch and all that stuff. It's crazy. It really is. But outside of that, for you to talk about how there is endless amount of ways for people to be framed, 100, that's big there too. And then of course there's pre-crime. That's one thing where how do you defend yourself against an action you haven't committed yet? And then you have, but the other, I guess the lighter side I was hoping for was, does it put investigators, does it put people, CSI, everybody completely out of business based on what I remember in China not too long ago? There has been several articles on how it's either one of those Asian countries out there was dabbling with AI to at least assist in adjudicating, private disputes and other things out there, essentially using AI to be a judge in a courtroom.
Right.
I know
it's coming, man. It's coming. Like there's it's somewhere on the East Coast where they were using AI in a traffic court as one of the attorneys, just arguing low-level traffic violations. And, so because like every story that you have out there where, you know, some lawyer used ChatGPT to write his brief for him and then was an idiot and didn't shepherdize the cases that he cited. And then when the judge plugs in the first cite, it turns out to be a completely fake case, you know, and that guy's embarrassed. I mean, they're going to overcome that. At some point, it's going to be able to access Westlaw and LexisNexis and be able to cite actual cases. Yeah, man, like I'm not a fan. Like, and that being said, I understand that, you know, the reality is that it will probably assist in so many ways that fundamentally will benefit society beyond what we could even dream. I mean, theoretically, it'll cure cancer, Parkinson's, all the major diseases that we just can't figure out because we're just not there in terms of our intellectuality, you know, and it's going to be so much more intelligent because it's going to be able to take all the information and use it in ways that our minds have not been able to figure out a way to use it. And, you know, I mean, the potential for the good to me is outweighed by the potential for the bad, because there's always going to be bad actors out there that are driven by power and money. And when you have that kind of power, it becomes a scary proposition for me, you know. And like, you know, my wife and I are like, oh shit, we got to get CB radios and we got to buy like a 72 Camaro, like that has no computer in it. So when we're going back to basics, because we have to shut the grid down. Yeah. Because
I don't want
the only way to. Yeah.
I don't know. See, I think the jury's out with me, if at all. I'm all for technology. I love what is at our fingertips and how we're able to use it. But then again, I think about the people who are behind the technology itself. Like, I don't believe that whereas AI, you can get these computers on a quantum level and everything else to be proactive and to solve things in nanoseconds and all that other stuff. That's all fine and great, but they all require prompts, and somebody has to give them those prompts. And this, I guess, this is the last thing I'll ask you as we kind of segue from this into some current human, very flawed human action in courtrooms around the country right now, which you are constantly on top of for your job. What would you say? Because I have a lot of friends, a lot more than I did a few years ago, who are baseball fans. They cannot stand umpires. They think that they're just bastards. And they think it would just be great to have AI monitoring the strike zone, calling balls and strikes, so there is never, ever a question about what the hell's going on ever again. Why not? You know, just get the hell, or get them off the field and stop all the theatrics and shit like that. Let's bring that into a courtroom setting now. For example, with Delphi, which I would love for you to give us the recap in a second, but that is one of many cases where it is rife with really odd behavior from judges, a lot of almost like personal vendettas. It feels like that, you know, that this is not just an unbiased arbiter of justice that is applying the law and really leaving their personality and their personal beliefs out of the equation. What do you think? Do you think that there is a place where AI would actually, if you can somehow guarantee that it has not been prompted to be very left of center, like we've seen with GPT, and it's just right down the middle or something like that, would you allow AI to take over some courtrooms in America based on what you've seen from judges?
I mean, conceptually, maybe, but you know, I mean, who's to determine what is dead center?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's always a very subjective, you know, very blurry line as to what people consider to be dead center. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know, man. And I'm telling you, like, I'm going to send you this letter when we're not on air, and I want you to read it. It's going to change your mind on this whole prompting thing. It's like, dude, you just have to consider the fact that somebody is actively trying to figure out a way to teach the computers to be able to create their own prompts. And that, like, it's way closer than you think. You'll see after you read that, and you'll be, oh, dude, like, so trust me, like, you'll probably be as mortified as I was. And it was written by, like, who they consider to be the godfather of AI, and it was like the most terrifying thing I ever read. But I don't know. I don't know, man. You know, I don't know if I trust it. It's like, to take the humanity out of it, despite the massive flaws in the system, you know, is a scary proposition.
It is.
It really is. You know, I don't know if I can trust it, you know, because, like, how does an appellate court deal with an AI judge at a trial level? You know, are those still humans, or now do we have appellate courts that are now computers as well?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
why would one computer ever find any fault with the first computer's ruling?
How could it? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, how could it? You know, because if that's the premise going in, that we've now got just a completely objective, unbiased arbiter, you know, the gatekeeper of the evidence that follows the rules of evidence to a T, you know, but, like, that's the thing about the law. That's why I think it'll never work with the law, is because the law in and of itself is all interpretation. You know, like, what I'm doing when I go into a court of law is I'm interpreting the exact same set of facts, circumstances, and evidence that the state is, and I'm coming up with a different interpretation than they are. And same with the statutes. You know, I mean, that's how law changes. That's how we decide there's bad law. You know, because, like, at some point, like, if you have that down the middle thing, like, when you get to, like, our civil liberties and our rights, like, if it's straight down the middle, how's it going to fall on, like, just hot button issues like abortion, or, you know what I'm saying? Like where does it fall in that type of situation? You know, I mean, You don't want politics being involved in that type of stuff, but obviously it is, and like, my mindset has always been, I don't think the government should ever have control over anything that any human being does with their body, period.
Yeah.
Like that's just my personal opinion on it. And it doesn't go beyond that. I just don't think that that's the government's business, controlling our bodies and what we do with them. It's like, I just don't think that that's their place, because we're talking about some big amorphous, institution that's been created by a document, that's filled in by people that are elected, that, whatever, man. I mean, like, dude, we could get into,
I get you. I get, and that's the crazy. And this next topic, which is going to be a review in many ways, is going to really highlight the reason why I ask you, because for everybody who didn't watch the first time you were on, I would love for you to give us just a brief recap of the case of the Delphi murders, who it involves, the victims, the supposed the suspect, and where we are right now. Because when you were on with us months ago to talk about this, even back then the case was such a mess, with lies, these peculiar battles between the judge and the defense, the allusions to Odinism and ritual murder. I remember talking with you about the police changing details, omitting details in search warrants to deceive judges. There's a lot of things in there that say, what the hell is the true intent here? If there's a cover up, who are they covering for? And why isn't the interests of the two young girl victims the priority here? Why is there why is there drama at all? So can you give everybody the recap of the case and where it stands right now?
Yeah. So kind of the thumbnail is back in February 13th to be exact, of 2017. Two young girls, Abigail Williams, young teenage girls, Abigail Williams and Liberty German, had the day off of school. It was supposed to be a snow day. It had not been utilized that particular season. So the school gave all the kids off. The girls arranged to go out to this nature preserve in Delphi, Indiana, which is a very rural area, kind of in central Indiana, a little bit north. Girls went up, got dropped off by their sister about 1:30 in the afternoon. They went out there, the High Bridge, which is an old trestle that was no longer being used by the railroads. Kind of a scary proposition, but it went over a river. It was very dilapidated, but the kids used to love to go out there and still do, but they've refurbished the thing at this point and made it safer. But, the girls and kids would go out and take pictures for Snapchat or Instagram, whatever the case may be. So they were out there taking some photographs, hanging out, and they were supposed to be picked up at around 3:00 by Libby's dad, Liberty German's dad. And he gets to the area, calls Libby. She doesn't answer. He's not like horrifically panicked at that point, but he reaches out to some other family members, he's like, hey, have you heard from Libby? They're like, no. They start calling around. They call friends, family. No one's heard from them. By 5:00, they're getting exceptionally nervous. At that point, panic starting to set in. No one's heard from either of the girls. He had gotten out and walked the trail completely. They're nowhere to be found. And so at 5:30, they contact law enforcement. Immediately, law enforcement starts a manhunt. They put the entire community on blast. They say, look, we're looking for these two girls from our community. People come out in droves. They search. It's early February, so it gets dark, very early. And they ultimately end up stopping the search, in the relatively early evening. Rumor has it they had a heat-seeking drone up, kind of like combing the area to see if it could find figures that were emanating some kind of body heat. Nothing ends up showing up. They continued the search bright and early the next morning, and unfortunately both girls are found deceased on an adjoining piece of property to where the High Bridge and the nature preserve or the nature park is. And from that point forward, obviously the manhunt begins. They try to figure out who did this. And within a few days of the girls being discovered, law enforcement, which was really being run by initially the Indiana State Police, and then the feds got involved, and they created this little thing called the Unified Command, which was a joint task force of law enforcement agencies that were kind of spearheading the investigation. But at any rate, it had turned out that Libby had taken a like about a 47 to 49 second video on her phone via her Snapchat camera, which I think got saved into her actual photos. And from that, she's thought to have captured an image of who law enforcement believes is the killer. This came to be known as the Bridge Guy video. So they released a 3-second clip of this guy who looks to be, slightly overweight, wearing a blue Carhartt, blue jeans, boots. Looks like he has some kind of head covering on. Very grainy photograph, because the thing that we end up seeing has obviously been zoomed in on massively, so it's heavily pixelated. You can't make out the person's face at all. And they also caught some audio from it, and in the audio he says, "Guys, down the hill." And so it's such a creepy thing that he says.
What is he? He tells them, he says, "Guys," like almost like, "Guys, get down the hill."
Yeah, guys, down the hill. And so if you're familiar with the area, you can get down from the high bridge. There's, kind of like a steep decline down to the area where they end up ultimately being discovered. So, that video and that sound caught the world's attention. So the case became super high profile immediately, because it's pretty rare for, them, especially one of the victims, to have the foresight and the bravery to theoretically take a video of the person who very well may have ended their lives. So it just captured everybody's attention. Jeez. And so the thing ends up going cold for 5 years. They conduct a massive investigation, and in October of 2022, in like the online world, the social media world, the Reddit world, with that case was just like rampant. It's like, you remember, Frank, how it was after the Idaho 4 murders, in that period of time while the investigation was going. If you think back about how just insane that was, especially on social media, especially online, people were like accusing people, like, the food truck kid who was like, got caught on, camera, who was the hoodie kid at the food truck, was like, oh, people were accusing him of being the killer. There was some woman on TikTok that was accusing a professor of being the killer. It had just gotten out of hand. It was like people's lives were being ruined. And, every web sleuth was trying to figure it out and trying to crack the case. And it was kind of the same thing that was going on with Delphi. So fast forward to October of 2022, an arrest is finally made, and they arrest this guy named Richard Allen, who happens to be a Delphi resident. So Delphi is a very small town. We're talking about, maybe 2,700 people. Like, it's a very, very small town. He happens to be a pharmacy tech at the CVS in Delphi. Like, he's been that way for years. Everybody knows him. He knows everybody. The guy's got no criminal record. He served in, I think he was in the National Guard for 10 plus years. He like, nothing about the guy stood out as him being like a monster, right? So they arrest him, and ultimately he initially said that he was going to hire counsel. He then, of course, made a couple phone calls and found out that he didn't have anywhere near the amount of money that would be required for private counsel to take his case. So, he kind of famously writes a letter to the judge, not realizing that Gideon versus Wainwright affords us the right, if you're indigent, to be appointed counsel if you're looking at prison. So he writes this letter, and the judge, of course, appoints him two lawyers that happen to be in private practice. But when you have small counties where they don't actually have a public defender's office, that's what they'll do. They'll take, private counsel, they'll appoint them, and then the county will pay them out, which is what happened. And they ended up appointing these two guys, Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie. And so these guys take over the case, and it's relatively quiet, for the first 4 or 5 months. And then in September of after he's arrested, okay, in September of 2023, they dropped this thing called the Franks memo, which we talked about the last time I was with you. It's a 136 page absolute, like I don't even know how to describe it. I like as an attorney, a criminal defense attorney, I'd never seen a document like it, because it was basically the defense laying out their entire theory of defense immediately, and so that the entire public was aware of it. And it's unusual because that's not typically what happens in cases. We are accustomed, because it's been this way for as long as we can remember, is that we always hear the state's theory of the case first, and that's what kind of percolates in the public's mind, and the media obviously is reporting on what the state's theory is. I've, of course, as a criminal defense attorney, have always found that incredibly prejudicial, to have just a theory of the state out there, because it's all it is. I mean, at that point, they've gotten the evidence, they've evaluated it, and they've come up with a theory of what happened. I mean, they weren't there, the cops weren't there, the prosecutor wasn't there, so all it can be is a theory.
So the defense goes out there, puts something out, and pretty much puts the state in a position where they, in unusual circumstances, has to be the one to respond instead of set the tone.
Right, and we just don't see it. Like the only two cases in my memory, and this is going back, and I'm an old dude, man, like going back a long way. I can't remember any time where I've seen the full theory of the defense put out there, other than the two cases right now where we have the absolute two most toxic online true crime communities, which is Delphi and Karen Reed. Because Karen Reed was the same thing. In that case, Alan Jackson and Yannetti put out their entire theory of the case, which was completely different than the state's theory, which was that Karen Reed was intoxicated and that she purposefully ran over her Boston cop boyfriend, John O'Keefe, and killed him in reverse after dropping him off to go to this party, an after party at some other cop's house. And that was the state's theory. And the defense in that case put out their theory that she didn't hit him at all, that he had gone into the house, that he got into an altercation in there, that he took a beating, that the dog attacked him, and that they brought him outside thinking that he'd probably get up and straggle off. And, he's not getting up, and he ends up dying of hypothermia in the front yard of the house that he was supposed to go into. So in those two cases, you have this rare circumstance where the defense, in my estimation, is just balancing the scales of justice. Like, why shouldn't we have both theories out there? But when you see, it's a perfect example of what happens when that actually occurs prior to a case going to trial. Because the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what side you're on, is we have to wait to trial. If it's going to trial, the entire point of the trial is to vet the evidence and to see what's what. Because at this point, it's both theories. You know what I'm saying? So jumping back to Delphi, what ends up going on is the judge hates this Franks memo. She doesn't come out and say it, but this case had been gagged. There had been a protection order. They wanted to keep, as much quiet as possible in terms of the facts of the case and the evidence of the case, because that had been the MO of law enforcement during that 5 years time. Like, they just wouldn't release anything about what had happened. They wouldn't release any of the crime scene information. They didn't want to like move the needle at all in the hopes of trying to solve this thing. So they just kept it all hush hush, and that continued. And they continued to try this thing in the shadows after Alan's arrest. So the judge and everyone else on the state side took great exception to them putting this out there, which had this entire Odin theory that there's this, that there's this Norse paganism, it's basically, they're saying that it was white supremacists that had co-opted Norse paganism and incorporated into, kind of like a pseudo religion for them.
So, do you see anything that's credible in that respect as far as a ritual murder aspect?
I haven't seen the crime scene photos,
right?
Like what I know is that, two sets of lawyers, because those guys end up getting booted. So the judge removes them from the case after a leak happens that they are claiming came from the defense's office, that one of the lawyer's buddies came in and surreptitiously took photographs of the crime scene photos without knowledge of the attorney and then leaked them. And then that leak they were blaming on Baldwin, saying, "Look, man, they were in your possession. You should have been guarding them like they were state secrets." Which I I've had war rooms in cases. Like, I just don't lock it down. You don't think that a close friend of yours is going to go and do something horrible like that. I mean, like, so she ends up booting both these lawyers. They end up fighting it, going back to the Supreme Court of Indiana. Supreme Court of Indiana says, you know what? And I think I was on before that had happened. So, like, last time I was on, like, they were booted from the case, or they were on the precipice of getting booted. So after that happens, they go up, they win at the Supreme Court level. The Supreme Court reinstates them to the case. And so they get all the discovery back. And it's just been an absolute procedural nightmare, this case.
Ever since then, because that brings us up to date at this point.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know, the whole ritual aspect is odd, especially since the two victims are white. So I don't know where the supremacy comes from in particular, but the thing that is getting me, and we are going to go on a quick break now. We're going to bring ourselves over to the other side on quitefrankly.tv, but that's the cliffhanger right from now, because when we go on the other side of the intermission, Bob, I'd love to just ask, in particular, what is the most likely reason for this front? Like, for example, what the quick examples of where you think the cops, the judge, the DA are in the wrong? Because what is the most likely reason for this crazy front that has been put on there, especially when it comes to the warrants that we were talking about the last time you were on, either being edited or things that are omitted? When any average person reads into a situation like this, even if they haven't been formally trained like you and have a lot of experience inside of American judicial system like you do, the average person should be asking themselves, are they covering something up? And if so, who or what are they protecting? Because you can't, I don't see how the DA or the judges or the police would want to scuttle and destroy the entire case and rook two young innocent girls of justice just because they don't like how the court-appointed attorneys put out their theory first. That seems such a, cutting off your nose to spite. But why? I don't know. Yeah, it's
yeah.
It's crazy.
Right.
So let's talk about that on the other side of the intermission. I'm going to put you on mute real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow me and Bob over to the other side of the intermission. That is at quitefrankly.tv. The description, the links are in the description. Everybody can share them around a little bit more. I tweeted it out. I truthed it out, gabbed it, all that stuff. Pill.net, quitefrankly.tv. Two sides of the same coin at this point. So we'll see you over there. Please follow us, and let's have a good time for the second hour. Be right back.
The rest of the show is available exclusively at pill.net. Follow the link in the description of the episode, get signed up, it's that easy. Or head on over to quitefrankly.tv, just press play. No paywalls, no censorship, no strings attached. So head on over, quitefrankly.tv, powered by Foxhole, and pill.net.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to intermission.
We'll be right back.
Yeah, intermission. Yeah, intermission.
You are now entering, quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.